Hello, everyone, and happy holidays. Thanks so much for joining us today, and I hope that your year has been fantastic. I'm excited to be here today for our next segment in our CRM for Oil and Gas User Group webinars. In fact, it's our last one of 2019. Today, we're going to make everyone an expert at charts and dashboards. Well, at least get you comfortable enough so that you can unleash the power that these features can provide. And we're also going to be taking a peek into the future roadmap, and trust me, we have some very exciting news to share. For those who don't know me, I'm Chad Collette. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Ledgy Partners. I'm sure many of you know me from previous webinars and all the information that I send you via email, which hopefully you're not only receiving but also find valuable. Before we get into the core of today's webinar, I have just a couple of housekeeping items to cover. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand after the live session. All attendees will receive a follow-up email after the webinar is complete today with a link to access this video on demand. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you add ledgypartners.com to your safe senders list to really ensure you get all of our emails. And if you happen to find us in your clutter, your junk, or your spam, please mark us as safe sender. Now, we encourage you to share any of these resources within your company and also refer us to other lubricant marketers you may know. Our goal is to really grow user adoption within the CRM for oil and gas solution and help marketers like yourself achieve the greatest return on investment possible. To ensure the best audio quality, we have everyone on listen-only mode. But if you have a question or a comment, please submit those in the question pane of your GoToWebinar control panel. We will follow up with you afterwards as we do have a full agenda today and we want to be respectful of everyone's time. Now that those details are out of the way, I want to welcome today's presenter, and he's really a man that needs no introduction. Steve Raybrock from Ledgy Partners. Now, I'm sure a large portion of our audience already knows Steve from being on site at your company as you came on board with your CRM. So, Steve, I'm going to turn this over to you. Take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Chad. And Chad's right. We have a lot of stuff to cover today. So I'm going to get right into our agenda, and then we'll get right into charts and dashboards. So that's the main topic. But we are going to touch on some of the things that are going to be coming out in the next probably year or so. So basically an update on our roadmap. We'll go through any questions that were submitted when folks replied or signed up for the webinar. I'll address some of the biggest challenges folks are having. And then we'll just kind of wrap up with some of those just reminders about training, resources available, and our referral program. So let's get started with creating charts and dashboards. So I was actually playing around a little bit with this morning, and I found out that the actual creating of the dashboard took me about a minute. And so what I'm about to share with you, I think is probably more important than actually how to create the dashboard, and it's having that foundation. What I kind of listed here is a couple of prerequisites so you're able to create dashboards quickly. So we covered this first prerequisite in a prior webinar, and there's also a video 300, that teaches you all about views and advanced find, that feature in CRM where you can create your own personal views. Because these dashboards and these charts use the data that you want them to use. So you have to define that. And if there isn't a view that's available, you're going to want to create a view that only includes the data that you want represented on a chart, on a dashboard. So it's real important you have a good understanding of that. And then the second one is probably even more important. Maybe I should have listed this one first. But you really have to have an understanding of the data that's available to you so you know what you can actually create with a chart or a dashboard. So just understanding things about how your team manages their opportunities. You know, what values do they fill in? When do they code an opportunity in a certain sales stage? You know, what fields are on the account screen, or what's in like your lead file? Right, you need to understand all of that. So then you can go, okay, well, we have this data. I can make a view, and then I can put that data, you know, in a chart format, a graphical format for you. So just a couple of important prerequisites I just wanted to make you aware of, and I'm not going to spend hardly any time on views because I've covered that, you know, back in August, and again, we have this video for that. I also noticed that quite a few folks who signed up were relatively new to CRM. So don't let this scare you away. You'll get there. Some of you, it's probably just a good education to know what the possibilities are, but there might be someone else in your organization who actually, kind of is that power user who creates these charts and dashboards. So I think that's still good for everybody to know. So what is a dashboard? Basically, it's just a collection of views and charts. And there are already a lot of views available in CRM, but as I mentioned earlier, you'll probably need to make some more. And there's also a lot of charts available. So you may never actually have to make a chart. I was working with a client recently who has dozens and dozens of dashboards, and I asked him about the charts that he created, and he said, "What do you mean create a chart?" And I was just shocked that there was enough charts already available that he just needed to, create the views for the data he wanted those charts to use, and then plop them on a dashboard. So, okay, enough about that. So a couple of strategies or hints you might want to use if you're going to be the creator of a dashboard is, this is just me, so everybody's kind of wired differently. But I would not just sit down and start making one. I would think it through first. And if somebody's approaching you asking, for a dashboard with these charts on it, you've got to just start asking all kinds of good questions so you know exactly what to build. And then it's good to just kind of scribble it out so you know what you want it to look like. Do you have the data available, or do you have to create some views? And I think planning ahead is just going to save you some time. I also think that if you don't do this often enough, and by this I mean creating charts and dashboards, I think it's more important to know where your resources are to help you do this. If you did one, you do one tomorrow, but then you don't do one for 2 weeks or 2 months. It's like, how did I do that again? Video 310 and document 310 in our CRM kind of cover a lot of what I'm going to talk about today. So the document just kind of lists the steps. So if you kind of like having that as oh, this is kind of good to follow. And then the video just kind of, shows me doing it. So these are really good resources to not forget about, because I just don't think it's something you do on a daily or even weekly basis, right? You might be asked to create a dashboard, today, and then, 3 months from now. It's like, yeah, I did one. How the heck did I do that? So all you have to do is remember 310. All right. The other thing that's really important for you folks who are going to end up building these charts and dashboards, if you do that, these are considered personal dashboards, personal charts. And it's the same with views, again, which I covered in a prior webinar. If you create a view, you have to share it with the people that you want to see it. The same thing holds true with charts. Now, again, if you're using system charts, you don't have to do this. But if you make your own chart, if you want anybody else to see it, you need to share it with them, and I'll cover that. And then after you create your dashboard, you have to share the dashboard. So some people get all done and they make a dashboard and they go, oh yeah, Bob can't see it, so then they share it with Bob, and then Bob pulls up the dashboard and it doesn't show him anything, because you have to share all the pieces of the dashboard. So there you have it. All right, let's see this thing in action. I am going to flip over to, I think I'll get CRM humming here. And then I also wanted to show you just real quickly on a spreadsheet that I created. So I'm kind of following my own rule, right? So this is just a made-up story, but Kevin is one of our managers, make-believe manager, right? And he uses CRM quite a bit. He's a manager, and when he looks at some of the dashboards and charts, right, he loves them all, but he sees just way too much information, right? There's lots of people using CRM, and he just cares about his team. So his team consists of Josh, Michael, and Tyler. So he came to me, make-believe, and said, I would just love a dashboard that pulls two things for me. I want to kind of keep an eye on the whole sales team, what's going on, and I would just like a list of all of the leads that are open right now. And then I would ask Kevin, well, what columns do you want to see on that list, right? Because a dashboard can just have lists on it, right? So he wants a list. Okay, fine. Apparently he doesn't want it in a chart format because there's not very many leads, so just a list is perfect for him, okay? And then he also wants a chart of open opportunities by person. So how many open opportunities does each of his team members have? Right now there happens to be a chart available in CRM, but it just shows everybody. So, boy, I'm probably going to have to make some views. I'm going to have to see if this view is going to work for him, or what columns. I'll have to make a view for this. I'll have to make a view to narrow down the opportunities to just his team. So, okay, so I know now I have to make some views. And once I have that done, I can start figuring out if I have to make any charts and then put this together on a dashboard. So let's see, I'm just kind of going to flip over to CRM again. And I just wanted to show you, just to remind you that here's a dashboard that's a system dashboard, one we recreated for leads. And you see it's a collection of charts, and there happens to be a list on here. Most people are thinking of a dashboard as charts, but you can also just have lists, which are just views. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to have a dashboard that has a list and that has one chart on it. And also, Kevin was nice enough to remind me that he uses this dashboard 2D, and this chart over here is the one he really likes. It's a number of open opportunities by owner, by person, but he doesn't care about 60% of the people on here. He just wants the 3 people that he cares about, so he doesn't have to go through and just doesn't want to have to look at all this other stuff. So all right, so the first thing I did in preparation for this is I created a couple views, and I can just show you that. I'm not going to show you how I did it, but if I go into leads, there's all kinds of views for leads, and before this webinar, I went in and I created a view called Kevin's Team Open Leads. And again, that's the own view that I created. Now I'm going to have to share that view with Kevin, so he has access to that. And then if I go into opportunities, there's lots and lots of views over opportunities. Pipeline is probably the mostly analyzed record in the system, it seems like. And I made a view called Kevin's Team Open Opportunities. And the rules on that, the filter on that, are only going to show me the ones that are the people who report to Kevin. So step 1, kind of figure out what Kevin wants. Step 2, okay, I had to make some views. So, and I found out that I don't even have to make a chart for this one because there's already a chart available. So now I'm ready to make a dashboard. So let's see how we do that. So I'm going to go into the workplace area, which is where all of our dashboards are. And you'll see how simple this is as I go through it. So that's all you need to do is hit the new button. So to create a new dashboard. So one of the limitations with dashboards is you can only have 6 quadrants. So you can't have a dashboard with like 50 charts on it. I mean, you can, but there's custom development for that. So with this tool, you can have up to 6. So there's some formats that you can start with that show you how you might want, to plot your charts or your lists. So there's about 6 or 7 options on here. I'm only going to start with 2. So I'm probably just going to pick this one, and I won't even use these bottom 2 quadrants. But this is just a starting point. Once you create one, you can always move things around, make them bigger, make them smaller, add a section. Again, the maximum is 6. So I'm just going to click on this, and then I'm going to hit create. So I'm going to create basically an empty dashboard. Okay, so you're seeing the 4 quadrants, nothing special there. Up on top is a name. I would be really careful on your naming conventions, especially if you're going to create a lot of dashboards. Because if I call this, Kevin's dashboard, what if Kevin comes to me later with another dashboard, right? So I would probably want to give this a name, maybe something like Kevin's Team, and this is all about his sales stuff. So I would say sales info, just as an example. So that's the name of the dashboard. All right. Now on each of these quadrants, you'll see that there's some options in here. And some of these get a little bit technical. I'm not going to cover them today. There's things like web resources, and I think this is like an iframe one. We're going to focus on these two options right here. One of them is to insert a chart, and one of them is to insert a list. So what did Kevin want first? He wanted a list of his team's leads that are still open. So I'm just going to create this right here. I'm just going to click this insert list. And what's cool is it only asked me like 2 questions. And again, this goes back to one of the prerequisites, kind of understanding the data. Well, the record that I care about is leads. So these are all the different files or entities in CRM. I'm just going to scroll down until I find leads. And then it's going to ask me which view do I want to use. And remember, Kevin only wants to see his team's leads. That's why I made that view. So all of these other leads were available to me, but I made this view called Kevin's team - open leads. So I answer those 2 questions and I hit add, and I've already created 1 quadrant. It's just that simple. So what do I have to do on this other side? We wanted a chart. So I'm going to pick chart. This is not that much harder because there's only 1 extra question I need to answer here if I do a chart. I always have to pick which record I care about. And in this case, he wanted opportunities. So again, going back to my notes from my discussion with Kevin, who wants this dashboard. So I want opportunities. And then what data do I want out of that? So what view? And I don't want my open opportunities. I don't want all opportunities. I want that view that I created that's only going to show me Kevin's team's open opportunities. And then what chart do I want? And these are all the charts that are available. And the one that Kevin was nice enough to point out to me, and he said, there's one with a record count by owner. Right here is a chart that's already created. So I'm just going to pick that chart. And that's exactly how it's going to look. And that's actually using that view's data. So that's kind of a preview of how it's going to look. And then I just hit add. And now I have this list over here. And I'm still kind of in edit mode right now. So I have this list over here. And I have this chart over here. I have the name of the dashboard. And boy, I'm pretty much done. I could actually go right here and hit save. And now it just saved it. And if I go back to my list of, actually, I'll just go back here to refresh everything and go back to dashboards. And now hopefully on my list, it's a personal dashboard. So as most of you know, when you create things like this, they show up at the very bottom of your list. And I might have to wait for this just to refresh a little bit. Let me just jump somewhere else quick. And I hope that save button hit because it went kind of fast. But you saw how easy it was to create that. I should be able to do that really fast if my mouse wasn't clicking that save button. So I'm just going to go to dashboards and take a look to see what we have. Yeah, it looks like it's refreshing right now. All right, hopefully it's there. So I'm just going to scroll down. If it's not, I'll just quick make it again. All right, there it is. So my dashboards, here's Kevin's team sales info. I'm just going to click on that. Dashboard was not there a minute ago. I'm going to click on it. And what's it going to do? It's going to pull up the dashboard that I created, which is just a list of Kevin's team's open leads and Kevin's team's opportunity count by person. So that is like 90% of what you need to do with a dashboard. Now remember that last thing though, now I can see it, but Kevin can't. So there's this share dashboard button. So if I go up here to share the dashboard, this gets a little bit technical, but there's a button over here to say, who do I want to share it with? I want to share it with a user. And then it just is going to give me a list of all the users, and I could search for Kevin. And I could add him down here and hit add. And now I only want Kevin to be able to, use the dashboard. I don't want him to actually change, the format of the dashboard or anything. So as soon as I hit share, now when Kevin goes into CRM, and it might take, a minute or two, but when Kevin goes into CRM and he goes to workplace and dashboards, he's going to see this dashboard on his list. This is, and then when he goes into it, it's going to look just like this. So, what did I do to get here? I created those views ahead of time, again, because that wasn't part of the webinar today, and I had to share those views with Kevin. So if I didn't, so again, there's some videos that are some videos and documentation that kind of explain views. So you create the view, share those with Kevin. I didn't have to really create any charts because this chart was already there, so I didn't have to share any charts with Kevin. So I just threw this stuff on this dashboard, saved it, shared it with Kevin, and Kevin's saying thank you very much. Now every time he goes into CRM, he can just pull up this dashboard to get like the 2 key bits of information he cares about. All right. You can also, if Kevin really liked this dashboard, you can set this as your default. So basically that just pins it. So then whenever Kevin goes into workplace and dashboards, this would be the dashboard that it defaults to just to start out. And then he can always, change it to any other dashboard on here. So that's just that starting point. Okay. So what are a few other things that I wanted to cover? Let's make believe we had to make a change to this. And this is a little bit risky. I don't do this a ton, right? So I'm just going to go up here into edit. And I'm gonna see what I can do to edit this chart. Or edit this dashboard, because I'm kind of back to where I was when I was saving it, right? When I was first creating it. So what are some things that you can do? So let's say Kevin said, look, this chart, maybe this chart just takes up too much room. So one of the things that you can do, it's probably really hard to see on a GoToMeeting screen, but I actually clicked on this section and it put a little blue bar, very thin bar around it. So this is the area that I'm editing. And one of the options up here are to kind of change the size. So if he just doesn't want that to take up so much room, he wants more room for his list of leads, I can just decrease the width. Now I could even, move it over here if I wanted to. So I clicked in this section and I'm dragging my mouse and you'll see this little red line here, and now it puts it here. Right now I could go over to this one, click in here, and it puts the little blue box around it. And I could go here and I could say, hey, make that a little bit wider. So now I've got a little bit more room to see more columns on my list of leads. And, the chart, I don't need a lot of real estate for the chart. So you can get a little bit carried away here, right? To try to make it really, I would say, user-friendly or pleasant, right? So there's not a ton of stuff you can do, but right, making things bigger, making things smaller. So that's one option. Let me see what else you might want to do. If for some reason Kevin didn't want a list at all, I think you can so I've got this one highlighted with the blue bar around it. I could just hit remove. If I wanted to add another section, I could just click down here in this box and create another chart or insert another list, right? So I can add things to it. If I wanted to go more sections, I used up all 4 and I know I have 6. If I go up here and hit this where it says chart, that would just, if there's room for it, it's going to let me add another quadrant. And it'd be up to, let's say, 5 or up to 6. So this is different ways to just add sections to an existing chart. An existing dashboard. I'm just kind of looking through my notes to see if there's anything else. So you can insert them, you can change the size. Yeah, and we did that by hitting the edit button. So you make a bunch of changes, you hit save. And that's dashboards. So let me just go back here and see if it's going to reflect my changes. So look at that. I can see it's kind of saved it already. So it's just kind of refreshing. And what did I do? Remember, I made this chart just a little bit narrower or smaller, used up less real estate, and now I can see more columns on my list of leads, which is what Kevin wanted. All right. So I think we covered quite a bit, but the one thing I really didn't cover is, what if there really wasn't a chart available for me? What if Kevin came to me and he said, look, I kind of like this chart, but so I want to know like how many leads, or I'm sorry, how many opportunities like the team is working on. But really what I want to do is I really want to see if they're being updated. So I would love to see a chart that shows me maybe by month, by the date they were modified. Show me, let's say, here would be, show me how many that were modified in December, and then how many that haven't been modified since November and October, kind of going backwards in time, because I just want to make sure that, my pipeline is kept updated and accurate and the team is keeping it updated. Again, I'm just kind of making up an example. So then how would you make a chart like that? All right, so what I always do is if he wants a chart over opportunities, I would go right over to sales and opportunities. And for those of you who didn't know this, if you're looking at any list of records, in this case, I'm looking at opportunities, there's a section over here for charts. So I can open up that little window, and these are all of the charts that are in the system already, right? But guess what? The chart I'm looking for does not exist. The view that I created for Kevin is perfect. It's his team's open opportunities, but he wants a chart of those opportunities different. He wants a chart by like the month they were last modified. All right, so no chart exists. We have to make one. So that's all you do is you kind of wake up this chart pane and hit the plus sign to make a new chart. And you're going to see how fun and easy this is. So the first thing I would do is come up with a really good, name for your chart. So this one might be, maybe it's let's see if I can spell here. I'm going to call it opportunity count by month updated. Right? So it's a count of opportunities. So I'm going to count them, and I'm going to show you, by the month they were updated. Okay? So now we have a name. Now really what we need to do is just kind of define, basically the X and the Y, so to speak. So I want to count the opportunities. So pretty much to count records, you can pick almost any field on the record. So I'm just going to go here and pick a field. This is the series section. So this is right here. So I'm just going to pick potential customer. I could pick pretty much any field in here, but I'm just going to say, count those. So count those records. And then going across the bottom, which they call the category, what I want to do is I want to use modified on, which is the date the record was last modified, because that's what Kevin wants. So I'm kind of getting back to one of my prerequisites. If you understand the data that's in the system, right, the fact that every record is stamped with when it was created, who created it, when it was modified, who modified it, right? Now you can create charts off of that. So he wants this by modified on, and by default, it's by month. So here's an example of what that chart's going to look like. So Kevin's team is maybe in a little rough shape, right? He was hoping all the opportunities that are out there have been modified in the last month or two. Some of them, this data is pretty old. He might look at this and go, you know what? Now that I see this, guess what? I would love it if you could do it by week. So now it's going to show, the opportunities and when they were modified by week. So how many opportunities were modified, last week, the week before that. And he's probably hoping, right, that after you get to be 3 or 4 weeks out, there shouldn't be anything here, right? They all should have been updated maybe within the last month. Then he knows, the team is managing their pipeline. So let's say that's maybe he changes his mind back and he wants it by month, which is fine. Either way is fine because I called it by month, so I probably should leave it like that. So I just created a chart. Under actions here, I would save it. You get all done, you want to make sure that you save it. So now I just saved it. I'm still in what I kind of call like edit mode. So there's under actions here, you can close out of, I think they call it the designer mode. I called it edit mode. So I'm going to close out of designer mode. And now I'm looking at this chart right here. And this is the view I happen to have open, which is my open opportunities. Really, Kevin, if we put this on his dashboard, we're going to say use that chart, but use this view. And then Kevin will see this chart on his dashboard. So he'll be able to tell very easily. He'll see his team's open opportunities. He'll see his team's open leads. And then he'll see like how often are they kept updated. So I could easily, as you know now, you could easily all go in and pull up that dashboard, hit edit, and insert this chart. And boom, you add another chart to an existing dashboard. The other thing that's important, as I mentioned earlier, is if you did everything I just said, everything would work except when Kevin pulled up the dashboard, he wouldn't see this chart. Because guess what we forgot to do? We forgot to share under these three dots. I forgot to share this chart with Kevin. So now I would share this chart with, I'm just picking Kevin, putting him down in the list here, hitting add. And if that looks good, I hit share. Now, when Kevin goes into that dashboard, I've shared the dashboard with him. I shared the charts that he needed to see, which was just this one. And I would have shared all the views that I used that are on the charts. So that is everything I wanted to cover today. Again, I think it's very, I think being able to create charts and dashboards is the easiest part of everything I talked about today. It's understanding the data, understanding the power of views, and then charts and dashboards is just pulling all that together. I mean, that is the easy part. You saw how many clicks it took to make a chart and to make a dashboard. The hard part is knowing what the capabilities are and what data is out there. All right. I am going to make sure I covered everything I wanted to. I'm just kind of looking at my checklist. Yep, I covered everything. I am going to flip back to the PowerPoint and see what else we need to cover today. All right. I hope that was helpful, by the way. So as far as roadmap goes, what are we thinking for the next probably 12 months? A couple of things that we did recently. We rolled out this key performance indicator feature back in October. I hope some of you are taking advantage of that. And we did find an issue with a process that was running. So we had to fix a little bit of the sales process you use when you're managing your pipeline. The system was letting folks, click in areas and actually goofing up some data. And that data affected really report 302. So we had to make some modifications there, just kind of snuck in a little patch fix, if you will. So that's all done. So what's coming up? Microsoft is rolling out what they're calling this a new UI, user interface. So in our future, as a matter of fact, in our near future, CRM is going to look different. It's going to, do the same stuff, but Microsoft is trying to get their mobile app and their web app and all their apps to use like the same user interface. So number one, we all only have to manage one, and then people only have to get used to one. So that's where we're headed. That's being deployed by Microsoft throughout 2020. So I have been testing that. I found some things I like. I found some things I don't like. And we're just going to make sure that that's running smoothly before we start rolling that out to when Microsoft wants to roll it out to you. We just have to stay ahead of them. So be looking for a lot of webinars and a lot of announcements on that, because I think I'm probably going to have multiple sessions on that one just to make sure everybody's aware of it. Because for some folks, it's going to be like, oh, I get it. Now I do this. Now I do this. For other people, it might put them back a step or two. So, but hopefully the end result is, we're all on the same interface. The other thing I'm just doing some analysis on right now. I really am not doing a ton of actual work. I'm just doing analysis. But as most of you know, we rolled out the mobile app earlier this year. And one of the things that Microsoft has always been working on is the ability to use that mobile app offline. So if you're not connected to the internet. And it's every time I've done this analysis, it's never really worked the way we want it to work, right? So we want it to work very good. So there's been some folks who are out there who are in some areas that just have terrible coverage. And so this offline feature is going to really be a benefit to them. But again, we don't want to deploy that to everybody and to whoever needs it, actually, until we make sure that it's suitable. So anyway, I'll be working on that. Then usually between some of these bigger enhancements that we do, I usually try to just sneak in a few smaller changes and requests. Otherwise, those never seem to get the attention they need. So every once in a while, you'll see a release that we do that has 20 things on it, and they're all maybe little things, right? But all nice, just not a really big thing like KPIs was a big enhancement for us. So we'll do that. Then kind of the next big project would be giving you the ability to schedule reports from Dashboard 97. So if you like a couple reports and you seem to have to run them, every Monday or the fifth working day of every month, right? Wouldn't it be nice to be able to just say, hey, system, just run this for me, because those reports get emailed to you. So you come into work on Monday and there's your 3 reports that you like, or you come into work on the 5th of the month and there's the 10 reports you like to get every month. So that'll be kind of cool. That's going to be a little bit later now because of all these other things that have come up. There's also this thing, this is very technical, but I just wanted you to be aware of it because we're kind of doing this on your behalf. But Microsoft has put a limit on what they call API calls, which I'm not going to get technical here, but every time you do stuff in CRM, right, things happen behind the scenes and it's calling out, doing certain things. And they're actually going to start charging if you use too many of them. So we're going to be doing a lot of analysis on how many API calls are done, by user and by feature that we have. And we're going to do everything we can to, get that down to where it's just a non-effect. So hopefully you won't hear anything about that. It'll just be all good news. Everything's just cruising along, but that's a big project for us to really analyze and get our arms wrapped around that. And because those are a couple biggies, then by then I'll probably have another list of small changes and requests to kind of slide in. So that is our roadmap. Some questions that came up. Somebody actually must be using KPIs because somebody asked a question. They set some KPIs. A lot of them are working. The next day you come in, you can look at the system and it'll show you red, yellow, green. Some of them, there's a couple of them come up and they don't have red, yellow, or green. They're either black or they have an X. They just can't calculate what's going on. And I did mention this when we deployed this, so whoever submitted this might have just missed it or didn't catch it in the video. But we found this out about a week before we were going to deploy our KPI feature, that some of you have so many records you hit a Microsoft maximum. And so when we're calculating your KPI and doing all the math and processing lots of records, it just kind of can't do it, right? It just dies. So instead of halting the whole project, we decided to roll out the KPIs, knowing that a couple of them weren't going to work, but most of them will. But we are working on that, and we're hoping, I know we got the holidays coming up. My goal was by the end of the year. It still is, but there's a chance it might bleed into January. But we have a workaround for this maximum. We just have to test it. But hopefully who's ever getting this uncalculated KPI within the next few weeks, you'll start seeing red, yellow, or green on those as well. All right, that was the only question, I think. If you do have any specific questions, hopefully most of you know you should reach out to your power user, or if you're allowed, you can go directly to our support team. Here's their number and here's their email address. I think email is probably nice because you can do screenshots and send it right to them. I'm doing this and I get this message or whatever. So definitely don't wait for this user group webinar to submit support cases or support issues. Just reach out right away, get those fixed, or at least get an answer. Because I did notice, this question that was submitted. It's a good question. I'm glad you submitted it, but you could have easily just called our support desk. And I see a lot of kind of support type things as well under biggest challenges. So if what you put in there is truly a challenge that's painful, and you want to get it resolved, please call our support team. So speaking of biggest challenges, these are the ones that kind of bubble to the top, the ones that I saw the most of. Some of the challenges submitted were support issues. So yes, please just work directly with our support team and they'll help you out. Many stated that they were new to CRM or needed training. So many of your organizations have taken advantage of just tapping into LedgeView to do 2 or 3 or 4 webinar type training sessions. So if you think that would help your group, you can let me know. Or maybe your power user there can do some training sessions, but it sounds like there's a lot of new users out there, a lot of folks who just wish they could, have just a little bit more training. So keep that in mind. And then the one that always seems to come up is user adoption and time. And that's a tricky one. We've had a couple webinars on user adoption. We've got some user adoption guides out there. I mean, I really can't solve the time issue, right? We all get 24 hours a day. It's really how you use it. I think one of the challenges with CRM, a lot of times when you're putting stuff into CRM, it's like almost of no value of when you're doing it. The value comes later. And that's a tough sell when you're busy, right? But hang in there, hopefully get some training, get efficient at it, and hopefully start taking the time to learn it, and hopefully time will become less of an issue. It'll just kind of become a habit. So maybe the training will help. Anyway, those were the biggest challenges. The other thing I just want to remind folks of, if you hire somebody new, if we add them as a user to CRM, we set them up on it's almost like an email training program, if you will. So if we set up a user this week, then next week and the following week, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's for 2 weeks. So they're going to get like 6 emails, just kind of describing a couple features in CRM and directing them to a video. So anyway, I just wanted to remind you of that. And then we also have ledgeviewpartners.com, a website with all kinds of resources for you as well. And then I always like to just remind everybody of our referral program. This is actually somebody's taken advantage of this already, which is kind of exciting. I had a referral, and the referral is now using our system. And so that company got a $1,000 credit, or is going to get a $1,000 credit. And then the person who actually submitted the referral gets a $25 gift card. So just want to remind everybody, obviously, if you know somebody who has a company similar to yours, they're not competing with you, and you're thinking, hey, if you guys have a crappy system, maybe you could use this CRM that we use. And just introduce them to me, and I'll take her from there. All right. I think I'm out of breath and almost out of time. So I am going to turn it over to Chad to wrap things up.
Thanks a lot, Steve. That was some great information, and I hope everybody found value in digging into charts and dashboards and seeing how easy it is to create and share and really get all that information right at your fingertips to be more efficient and more effective. Steve covered a lot of information there, but again, remember that we are here for you. So, from a support standpoint, from a resources standpoint, we want to make sure that user adoption is high with the solution. So with that, we're going to call it a day. I want to wish everybody a happy holidays, and after you log off, there will be a survey. Please make sure you add ideas for topics that we can take a look at and evaluate for 2020. So have a fantastic day, and thanks for joining us.